and I'm under
Yeah.
plant medicine. I'm all the way in. I'm the dragon, and that's when I can do things and control the elements of fire and have dragons show up in the fire and speak to them, and they blowing smoke at me through their snouts, and you can see it. I put up video about it because people didn't think it was possible.
Welcome back to Consciousness of the Way. And I have my basically a brother from another mother again, the one and only Coach Reg. And we are back for part two because, quite frankly, no one, not a single person I've heard from that's watched the podcast on all platforms can get enough of the dragon language and light information that he puts out and his understanding of it. And we're just going to go even deeper right now. So, welcome back, brother.
Mm.
Let's, people are digging the dragon language. That's your bag, that's your expression, and it resonates with people. So, why don't we speak a little bit more on that? Because we were getting into some really good stuff the last podcast.
Yes, the dragon language. What I've noticed about the dragon language, which unlocked me in Arizona, where the dragons live miles under the land, is a lot of us have a lineage with the dragon people. They call them Nagas, whatever you want to call them. And I have a lineage back to Egypt with King Tut Therese Sarakumvereki Samiel, which was also a rider and a commander of dragons. And this is my knowledge on them that I've been channeling through. So lately, since 2020, I've been developing different variations of the dragon language. It started to sound like a serpent type, and now it's very fluent at this particular point in time. So when I finally shared it with the world in 2023, people really began to respond to it, which I realized helped unlock the key codes inside their body for their awakening process as well. And I will share some in this video today so you guys can hear it too.
This is exactly what we want to get down to. The old expression, the brass tacks, how interesting the echo of it. I don't know whether you've ever heard that term before, but it was just an unconscious, like, echoing messaging, which basically in essence is, you know, the tax that were handed to the immigrants that came over here when there was sort of like an influx of realization America is the place to be, and they were given these tax as a form of currency, which I found very interesting. So that's where, just if anyone goes, where did that expression, the brass tax, come from? Well, that's exactly where it came from. So let's talk more about the language that resonates with you. This actual topic is very exciting for anyone that hears it, and understanding it coming from the source would be, of course, the perfect way to get the information, and you're getting it directly from your guides. Do you have names for the guides? How do they come to you, in what form, and how are they expressed?
Oh, well, the way that I have perceived the guides is they are the ancestors which live in my body, in the quantum realm, inside of the physical body, and it's nothing external which I'm receiving. Everything is internal. It's all from the DNA and also the connection of the soul, which helps activate the DNA for my perception of what it is, and it's all inside of me. So there's nothing I have to do. I don't have to meditate. It's just me at this particular point in time. I've developed it to a degree where I don't have to do anything. I can speak it on demand. It doesn't matter. I've talked to many people who call themselves channelers and they have to sit, concentrate, and do these things. And that's, to me, at this particular point, it's a little primitive, because I'm not pulling it anywhere. I'm not being used as a conduit. This is actually who I am.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, does that resonate with me, my friend? You know, it's just to the audience's little steadfast realization what Coach Reg is talking about. You know, we need to understand, when you're getting transmissions of any kind, you get a thought, you get an idea, you have a sense of self to some degree, which is where most people start, right? and you're like, oh, wow, there's something greater out there. I'm getting these ideas to do this, or something's pulling me to do that, or I had a thought that this was a good idea. And then there's an actual developmental shift, which Coach Reg is talking about, where you embody this and realize this is the true nature of who you are. And that information that is coming from you, admitted from you, transmitted from you in all forms is the very core of you. And so his realization is a really profound thing. And many people can spend decades in this natural born life looking to acquire that sense of self. And, you know, it comes in all forms. You look at channelers like Bashar, you know, Abraham Hicks, or, there's a myriad of people. Like, it's really becoming quite mind-blowing when you realize how many people are picking up the understanding that there's all this information that's coming through them, out of them, around them, and they just tune in and they go, holy moly, I'm listening. And then they give it back to you, and then another validation. So I imagine Coach Reg is getting these validations where the information is coming through him, and of course it's from a higher consciousness, a higher dimensional shift, and it's being transmitted into his 3D reality. He's able to validate it through his experiences. What do you say on that?
I say that's correct. I say that there are many dimensions to who you are. And I would say that you need to focus on the inner self, because all the real stuff comes from within. And,
yes. A great thought. So you know, they have this knowing, and sort of they transfer into it. And you know, I do exactly the same thing with Latu. I'll sit there, and I don't know whether you've seen one of my channels, but you should check one out, or we can experience it together at some point. When I just channel Latu, and there's expressions of that. Now, do I understand in my true nature that I am a reincarnation of Latu? Absolutely. And so, but there's also this concentration of information that I can shift even deeper into the nature of that, and it will be expressed with my demeanor, my expression. The things that come out of me are altered, and so some cases people like to will notice that difference. That transmission becomes concentrated, so it's sort of like drops deep into the core of the center of your physical body. It starts transmitting out, and you start to feel like you're in a sauna. And so the higher the degrees of the transmission, the more powerful, even more powerful the messaging. So, you know, Coach Reg and I are absolutely expressing the same way when it comes to our information from that higher state of consciousness. In Coach Reg's situation, it's specific realization of your guides, an energy specifically that you would call on.
Reword the question again.
Well, what would be the actual specific frequency that you call on, that you identify with, that you get a lot of your information from, like which spirit or entity or whatever?
You know, it's funny. I'd never ever called on a specific entity. I don't. It just comes through me. That's what lets me know it's something inside of me. That's, like I always said before, it's like a ticking time bomb of consciousness. After a lot of my experiences that I went under, there are many aspects of myself that have ascended, and they all come in and help me. Many. I have one that's a monk. I have one that's this particularly like transformer figure with metal tendons. I have another one that is King Tut. I have another one that looks like you know, Broly from Dragon Ball Z. I have another one that's a white cop with superpowers with a mustache. I have a lot of aspects of myself that are pieces of my soul which have ascended, which assists me throughout this time. And I never specifically call on any one of them. I'll set an intention, but they normally will come through as needed. And I just let the universe take control of what is inside of me, because it's all good, you know?
Yeah. No. I love that. I love that. Hang on. Am I doing? Yeah. I love that. And, you know, it's really when I say call on, it's sort of like a state of consciousness. Within Taoism, we look at consciousness as a diamond, and you just look at another facet of it, and that's a different perception, a different insight into the very nature. So I would say, I would reframe what I said. I wouldn't say I call on them, as opposed to shifting gears, and their insight is instantaneous. Now, there are moments where I'm like, okay, you want the answer to something, I'll do a live with Latu, and people will just come in and ask questions. Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And he will answer it in great detail. And, you know, that's also a state of where you're at too in your transmissions. I believe that that's very much in the core of yourself. You may have not have you done lives with transmissions like that before?
Yeah. But there's one little opposition, because I think there's so much of the ego involved with certain things. I need to put it to sleep for a little bit. So when I used to do lives on my Patreon, I used to do them under about 3 grams of mushrooms, and I would let my higher self come in 100% all the way. And that was years ago. But I think the biggest part of my ascension is being able to tune in without presence of the ego at all. I like that. It's very powerful. And I completely and utterly change. People even say I look differently. I change.
Yeah. Oh,
because
absolutely.
I'm in my truest self.
Oh, 1,000%. I would concur and affirm that. And that's just part of how powerful the channel is.
Yeah.
And so when you really tap into it, you know, it's a complete shift. Like, you know, when I'm sitting here talking to you, you see the backdrop of, you know, parts of my temple. Well, that's not what I'm seeing. And it's a temple experience where, you know, I'm sitting in the middle of the universe, observing all different constellations, only sampling them at will, floating through them, and at will experiencing the true nature and essence of that star, that planet, and experiencing it from head to toe. That transmission is transmitted through my physical tuning fork. And that's just part of consciousness. And so when we get to this state where people talk about out of body, near death, sleep paralysis, all these sort of gateways to the higher self, i.e., using mushrooms, other things that expand consciousness, these are all profound ways to get in there. Once you get into the groove, you can access that at will without the extension of anything other than going inside yourself even deeper. And that's something that you have acquired, that skill. You developed it, and the gateway has remained open. No matter what you've sampled, your consciousness continues to get bigger. It's growing second by second with your exposure to more abilities to acquire these states and maintain them. And that's part of, you know, the true nature of who you are. And it's exciting because most people chase that. It's like that old expression, chasing the dragon, right? Yet people fall short so often. And then they get caught in the psyop of, the only way I'm going to get this and obtain this ascension is through this particular pathway. And it's just so not the case when you realize everything is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite, the truth to all things. So that means that there's no end or no beginning. If you fall in on the understanding of, you know, energy cannot be created or destroyed, it just is. Now we have the ingredients, excuse me, for profound realization. And so now it's like, okay, the simplicity of discerning between higher self and personality, or more commonly, you would refer to it as ego. This is the sum of your life experiences. This is the limiter. This is the deception. This is the manipulation. Emotions are there to distract you. Emotions are there to misdirect you so that you are trapped within the limits of the very nature of what that is. And so the first thing that you acquire is that fearlessness. Fear is null and void. when that's accessible, when you realize the emotions don't control you, you control your emotions, profound things start taking place. What does that mean? Well, you can tell them to sit over there and play dead, and then you get down to the business of being consciously the universe. And that's where people get all, yeah, but you know, I need to feel and express myself. And true consciousness is love. Love, until otherwise realized, is nothing more than a definition of your subjective view of reality. So what does that mean? It means that, oh my goodness, love to you could mean razor blades and bunny rabbits. To me, it's unicorns and rainbows. It's not validated because it's still a subsection of what you've experienced. The next degree shift up from love is actual gratitude. Gratitude is a much easier way as a gateway state of consciousness to be validated universally, because you and I can give each other compliments, and there's gratitude there. Because we're validating each other, we're accepting each other, and there's that nurturing wholeness that comes with being grateful. And so you can either give me a compliment by saying hello, or you can give me $1. I'm going to get to that same state. And once I get there, now we level up, because now it's more universal. It's not so subjected to the sum of your life experiences, where people think, you know, love is hallmark, you know, expressions of realization, as opposed to the universal integration. Because I do this a lot on my podcast. I'll get people to obtain this euphoric feeling. And so you're able to mimic, you know, nitric oxide production, oxytocin production, dopamine at will. And there's a euphoric, overwhelming blood flow, like surgence, that starts within your core of your heart and ripples out into all cells of your body. That is acquired, that is validated, that is now realized as your truth. And so when you start to accept things as one, there's nothing that can't do, because if you are me and I am you, what is there to fear?
Correct.
Nothing. Nothing. And as my favorite clip from one of my favorite movies, because Denzel Washington is one badass evil expression of how human beings can perceive reality. King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
Mm-hmm.
That realization is something else, because that is the true nature of being void of all title. And when you get there, it's just all bets are off. And I love the fact that you're able to identify with this, how you've perceived it as ego, because that's kind of like the first limiter for most people. And then they just get caught up in the semantics of their reality, and God doesn't love me. Why would God do this to me? And this is just subsections of their own perception. It's not real. None of it's real. If I tell you to go F yourself, that's not real. The evoking feeling that comes from me saying that is all an echoing expression of who you are. The old expression, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That is a powerful incantation. That there, because you are falling into two sides. You can either realize that from a divine sense of ascension, that words are the most powerful catalyst to create, or you can stay limited within a duality and go, words are the very mind prison that will keep me in this simulation, which is my personality. And so there's two vast differences. And the second you resonate, you expand with that, knowing that that is all things, that everything has no title, you know, you're off to the races, and you experience that on a daily basis. So when you're channeling, so you reserve yourself from channeling right now directly when you do stuff with your audience, or how does that work?
No, I channel directly with my audience. It's just there's levels to it. There's like when I'm under on plant medicine, it's an uncontrollable channeling. It's like I can't just come back to Reggie when I'm under plant medicine. I'm all the way in. I'm the dragon. And that's when I can do things and control the elements of fire and have dragons show up in the fire and speak to them, and they blowing smoke at me through their snouts, and you can see it. I put up video about it because people didn't think it was possible. Then they got quiet. But when it's with my when it's with my community, with my followers that I have, it is me. It is my aspect that's coming through, but it's controlled, it's filtered, it's not raw. It's raw, but it's I'm controlling it. When it's under of a higher level of it, there's no controlling it. I am it. It is me. There is no Reggie. He is gone. He's gone. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I pull it through like this. I pull it through. I can speak it very fluently because I practice it nonstop. I practice it hour. I practice it all day long, every day. I do the mudras all day. I practice the language all day. And for those who are wondering, the first step of me finding out about the language was practicing the vowel system. I was on an Iboga experience, and I wanted to develop languages that started to come through. So I decided to set an intention to say that. And the next day off the Iboga, somebody spoke about a vowel system. He said, the real vowel system is not A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. The real vowel system is A, E, I, O, U. So when I began to practice it, because it really resonated with me, languages began to come through, which resonated off the real vocal frequency that's supposed to emanate throughout the physical body. And then I realized the language that we speak is constricting to the physical body. So when I decided to start to speak the vowel system day and night, just letting it run up the chakras, up, down the chakras, and then it starts to unlock the key codes. And then I started to speak Gleram, Kuptiret, Silarim, Kirepticularum, Sukararam. Vlaim stu clerekiram sufere clera param over clear tikiverim boecleram. Science suram clopteram shikiveriserim. Vorim si lerakaram bos tikiveriserim. Clum tireseram vorim giptum kumgaram surits kiram. Vlaim stu karalam kurtilerekiram. Vim stu kirets copteram. Kum beretilerim kiret suram. Zaram Kuptere Surem Kuleptikerum. Start speaking that stuff, and then I started to practice it all day. But it didn't start like that. It started with me just practicing little things, and little bits began to come through. It started to resonate. I started to feel different in my body, and I just become addicted to the real language, because when you realize you're speaking a language which constricts you, and then you finally get the language that's unconstricting, what your body is supposed to be speaking, when you bend elements, you become obsessed with it, because when you're in the experience of becoming the all of what you really are, it feels better than sex, because you are once again one with the creator, which is you.
Man, amen to that, brother. Amen. Like I'm still high. You're just like fluffing it around. You're tossing it out there. You're pulpating it, and I love it. I love it. Now, when you speak this language, do you parallel it to a translation in English? How is it transmuted into something that you correlate for now?
Okay, so the way it was explained to me by higher self is language, English, is the lowest frequency you can speak. So when you are speaking something which is outside the matrix, there is nothing that you can correlate it besides feeling, the feeling that you get, the feeling which is inside, because feeling is higher than language. Even the birds speak on a higher frequency than language. Even the cicadas speak on a higher frequency than language. And you cannot correlate anything they say with English, because there are no words to describe what it is we're speaking, what it is they're speaking, because English is meant to constrict. So when you try to use language which constricts to describe something which is higher, which is unconstricting, which is unlocking, there are no language. So you have to go to the next language, which is a feeling, because your feeling is also a language. When you feel something, you do something. That is an action based off of a feeling, which is translating something to you to make you move. So when you say, I'm going to do it, that's another thing. You're going to do it. But when you feel it and you control that, you either stop or you go. So when you want to take something to translate how it makes you feel and perceive it as that, but don't try to break it down in English, because it's impossible to do. It's outside of this matrix.
Well, that's mind blowing, because for me, my native expression of all things derived from all transmutations and evolution of what we speak on as Mandarin today. And that all started with the seed of oracle bone reading 10, 20,000 years ago from the Yellow Emperor, who was basically the guy who laid the infrastructure for the, Chinese society today. All started with the seed of his realization and connection with the universe. The universe spoke to him, and he was a transmutation of that. He was brought down by the Jade Emperor, who was another immortalized transmutation. He was one of the gatekeepers of the cosmos, and the universe as we know it was materialized with the three pure ones, and they're my teachers, and they are three parts of the evolution of the cosmos. And so you get this, and it's a feeling. I can literally speak anything Mandarin or draw any character all the way back to, I can create and reveal characters that never existed physically within this humanness that will have more resonance than the very characters that they draw on within the Mandarin language today. And people throughout all these transmutations of one emperor to another, and before that, because we were just using symbols, frequencies. That's truly the essence of all this stuff, and it's what I believe Coach Reg is talking about, is understanding. For me, I always remind people everything is a thought, feeling, and an emotion. That's it. And so how do you to translate that? I remind people, if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. In the story, which then would validate exactly what you're talking about, brother. The feeling is the signature. And once you sink into that, and as you become more in tune with frequency or the audience, when you're listening to Coach Reg speak his native tongue, it rocks you. The juice coming out from those very spoken words reverberate, oscillate, isolate. Listen, the fact that you would stay simple with the idea that the English language is your barrier is the perfect idea you need to realize. That's the barrier you need to dissolve, because if we're looking at ancient texts or practices, the language of English is a bastardized language that's a myriad of all these other things put together in a melting pot to interpret what your very expression is. And so when people realize that, they go right to Coach Reg's page of, man, I just need to hear and feel that frequency, man. And that's it. Whatever you say, the good old one-liner from Jerry Maguire, you had me at hello, right? It's like right there, man. The second you open those gates, it's transmitted from you at a super dense frequency. And so that frequency is embodied in everything around you. You're transmitting it through this camera out into your room, into your land, into your town, into your state, into your country, into the universe. The universe is expressing it into all dimensions. That is the power of what we speak of. That is what Coach Reg just gave us a sample of. And so it resonates. It makes sense to people. And, people create whatever you want to create. You create it. You resonate with it. I mean, my goodness. I mean, the first person to take a big leap would be the realization of just, ebonics. I don't even know where that came from. They say Snoop Dogg created it. It's like whatever works for me, my shizzle, my nizzle, whatever it is. Yeah. Guess what? People are like, oh, that's ridiculous. That really? I got millions of people telling me that ain't ridiculous, that listen to his very word and resonate with whatever he's saying. And then you get these sort of like pillars where people are standing on a podium and they're saying things, and then all of a sudden you realize they're an extension or a talking head. So I love things like that, where you have a realization that there is no right or wrong. It's what you resonate to, what you believe, what you know to be true is how you express yourself. And then you take it down to a very slow state like this 3D reality and you show people. And then they go, whoa, okay, we know exactly we know what you're saying. Absolutely. Because it comes that quickly. And so when you're using this language and it's so powerful and resonates with my audience, what do you normally take from it? You use the language. I mean, that's just magic in of itself. If people aren't aware of that, I'll just give you a heads up. Straight up magic. Whatever he's putting out there has a density to it. It has a signature, and whatever he focuses his attention on is where that's going to go and going to create whatever it is. Do you use it in that sort of form of expression, or how would you use it?
I use it. I didn't know what it was for at first. I thought it was just for me, but I use it now to help people unlock themselves. Once they hear it, they are starting to get memories of the past. They're starting to activate. Some of them are even starting to do it themselves. Some of them are becoming telekinesis and sharing their experiences with me since hearing my languages. It's a tool to help you unlock the key codes that are hidden inside the body that are dormant. So that's how I'm using it. That's the way I'm and there are certain songs and chants that will not stop coming through me unless I share it with the people. They will not stop. And I don't want a backlog of songs and chants that are coming through me because they don't stop, and they'll do it all day long until I share it. When they share it, then it will finally stop. And then I got to do another one. So that's my purpose right now. That's how I'm sharing it with the people.
And that is, you know, you can understand this. I understand it because honestly, if I want to sit down with my teachers and never sleep and never feed or nourish this physical like anchor, days, never ending information, just free flowing all day, every day. And so when you mention that, it really resonates with me because I understand it. I know it. I live it. And that's really what happens when you obtain that flow within Taoism. We call it Wu Wei, effortless action, the fluidity, the flow, the Wu Ji, the stillness. That is it right there. And then, you know, you have this backdrop. So on a visual level for me, with my eyes open, where in the universe, I'm speaking to Coach Reg, I'm sampling all these energies. I can go from that straight into a myopic sort of like expression of a wooden box out in the front of my temple right now and sit inside it and be in complete darkness and have anything come through my field as a playing field that will express itself in light and transform into whatever it is, which then turns into a healing, a manifestation, magic. I can jump straight from that outside into, you know, the local casino down the street and observe someone win or lose their life savings. That's how fast you transmute this. And this is how this is the access that all people have. It's now acquiring that sensory perception, that skill to validate it, you know, because most people go, wow, I've had this experience, and then they can't validate it. So it stays in this sort of gray matter, skeptical area where they're like, well, you know, I guess I've got a great imagination. That's the start. That's all you need, is that we are all creators. That's it. That's the entry level, realizing you have this imagination. That's where you start. That's where it's generated from and derived from. And the more you lean on that, the more you realize that, profound things start taking place. You look at George Lucas. Where do you think Star Wars came from? He just sat down and started writing. And literally, you can parallel all these episodes of Star Wars to levels of consciousness and actual religious patterns and belief systems that translate into spirituality, all from Star Wars.
Yep.
And you go, whoa, that guy must have been taking some really crazy acid. Actually, the dude wasn't taking anything. He was just sitting down and writing. And that is where Coach Reg and I are at. You get to a certain open point, and there's no right or wrong, whether you're taking something or nothing. it's obtaining that consciousness and now being able to replicate it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part where the biggest misconception is that you can't do it. The honeymoon is over. No, that's a fallacy. That's a lie. Once you get a taste and you widen that lens, it only gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the more and more you accept that all things are abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite, then there's nothing that you're taking from. There's no excess or deficiency. Mm-hmm. It's just oneness. And that's where that power comes in. That's where Coach Reg is like on that plane of reality. And so do you do, you're heavily more into the channeling. Do you do specific healings? Can you give us an example of what you've noticed or verified for yourself in relation to a mental, emotional, physical healing, something that you've witnessed?
Yeah. I was on this call with somebody that signed up for a channeling session, and she told me what was going on with her. And I let whatever channel through me, because I don't try to direct it. I just allow whatever comes through directed at her. And she was a lot better after that. She was very clear after that. And she started to just, she said she felt like she had been unlocked, you know, mm-hmm. and there were things that were blocking her inside of her. I've realized that throughout my plant medicine retreats that I've had is that these tones exercise demons too. They exercise people that have things that are sitting on them. And I would notice it because whenever I would speak it, the demon would come and try to attack me. I remember one grabbed onto me and locked me into a portal of time where the same instance was happening over and over and over again. Then I realized there are certain type of entities that actually exist in our minds, which will keep us in a state of limbo by our own thoughts, by, you know, constant thinking, but not doing, paralyzing each other. So this particular demon held on to me and put me into a bubble of when I was going through my shroom experience. And I realized that I exercise things that are on people as well. It scares them. So they run when they hear this.
What a great observation. I mean, that's really the start of it, right? Because you bring in a high frequency, and then most people, until otherwise informed or aware, mm-hmm. operate in duality. Excuse me. So that duality draws in these energies, mm-hmm. the very nature of all things. So you are really bringing in just an expression of someone's humanness that comes in that lower vibrational state, and then it can transform into and be fed by mm-hmm. someone would perceive as a demon or some type of lower vibrational energy, and they will represent themselves that very way, and yes. they will cling, and they will, I call them stage 5 clingers. They literally hang on until the nature of their presence is being recognized. And what does that mean? It means that they're there because you have summoned them to validate something that you are going to heal from. Mm-hmm. And this, again, is the construct of your reality. What is that? It's whatever you say it is. It starts and ends with you. So, you know, and that healing, I can go years without seeing them, and then you come across people that are very much in love with the nature of these things. Mm. And so then they come out and express through how they perceive the reality. And so then you get like, you can have hordes of them. And they, generally speaking, the longest I've ever taken to exhume, exercise an entity was like 3 hours, but that was many decades ago. But normally, you know, the quicker you connect them with a universal understanding of the frequency of all things, i.e., the true nature and expression of love, not a subjective interpretation, that is where people start with. And once they resonate in that high frequency, then they're able to express the unconditional love and acceptance that Coach Reg and I talk about is now the default, and not a muddied sort of interpretation of that, which is the sum of your life experiences. And so that comes out. And so, you know, these entities always dissolve very quickly when you You need a hug? Give you a little hug. Come here. Come on. And really has everything to do with that because the victim mentality rises up. And so a human being is very much consumed with themselves. That's the catalyst. And so they get distracted with that. That narrative is the very driving force of their operation in this realm until otherwise being updated with a greater sense of awareness. They have a shift, they have a glimpse, they get a taste. They're in the presence of Coach Reg, they're in the presence of myself. That frequency alters the very nature of all things. It shakes the tree, per se. And then you're like, hang on, whoa. I've just been operating with these frequencies around me, i.e., just example, just something else that Coach Reg is so passionate about and is an expert in, which is parasites, but not just parasites on a physical level, on an energetic level that transmute into a physical level. Pretty much I'd throw them in the same category, but that's exactly what we are talking about, right? Tell us more about that.
Well, I look at parasites on the physical level as a form of a physical demon to a degree.
Yeah,
you know, it latches onto you, it controls your mind. It does basically the same thing as one without a physical body to you. And most people, especially in America, have these parasites. Intestinal parasites are the ones that will hold on to the brain. They know what you want. You can ask yourself a question as far as, why am I eating the food that I eat if my goal is to get healthy? If your goal is to get healthy and you're doing some things that are not healthy, that can't possibly be you, because you, your truest self, want to be healthy. So there's obviously something that's taking you over. You're feeding them. You're always hungry. You're lacking mineral. You're deficient. There's something that is eating away at you. It's, you know, there was a book I was reading called Microbiome, and it was explaining an ecology of non-human organisms which live inside of your body. And that's what parasites are. Parasites are truly what runs the planet right now. And we don't even know it because they're inside of us. Most people want to deny it. Most people want to say, I don't have them. Meanwhile, the parasite told you to say that because it wants to eat its cookie. Next time you go to the market, buy something healthy or want to buy something healthy. And as soon as you pass by that cookie or that bakery aisle, as soon as you walk into the market where nobody put it so you can smell it and get that stuff, because sugar runs the world as well, because most of you guys are addicts. And the parasite's favorite food is sugar, just so y'all know. I want you to look back on the movie, as a matter of fact, because they put it in a movie. It's called The Men in Black, the first one. And it was when the spaceship came down. The guy's name was Edgar. Now, Edgar he was cool. His wife she was what she was. And as soon as he went to go check out the ship, it was a bug entity that they was fighting against. See, that's the parasite. They put it in movies. You got to be able to see this stuff. And it took him over and it shrunk into his body. And the first thing he wanted to eat was sugar water. He wanted to drink. I want sugar water. He wanted that. That's the parasites inside of your body. So when you go by that cookie aisle, watch how your brain tries to rationalize eating one cookie. It's never just one cookie, but they get you. And then as soon as you're done that whole box of cookie that you just ate, right, you feel bad all over again. Why? Because you fed the parasite. Now, when you go to a non-physical parasite, you're feeding them through your emotional state. So they work together. The physical ones, they want to consume your physical body, and the other ones want to control your energetic body. They want to eat. Both of them are working together, just like the pharmaceutical and the medical industry work together. The parasites work together to get you as well. Then that was just a channel that just got. Okay, so they're working together to get you, and one is messing you up on the spiritual level, so your emotional state can be disrupted. When your emotional state is disrupted, what are you going to look for? Your drugs, your comfort food to feel good. It doesn't make you feel good, but just for a second. Then after that, the next few hours, you're tired, you have brain fog, you're feeling like trash, right? But you're convinced it's comfort food. What convinced you that? What made you feel like it was comfort? The parasites. And once the parasites go, you will find that you are a whole different person, which is what I offer right there, the parasite destroyer. But telling y'all, family, the best way to know if you have parasites is to take that parasite destroyer and see if you have the parasites, because the parasites will even get you to not take it for a long time. I remember when I first was testing out the formulation for the supplements, when I channeled the formulation for the supplements, right? I didn't take this right here for 3 months. I would find excuses not to take it. Then I realized, wait a second, why am I not taking this? I was supposed to be bringing it to the people. It took me 2 years to bring this to you because I was fighting parasites. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it's a real deal. I don't care how healthy you think you are. It's on everything. So go ahead, try it out. I'm telling you, you can get rid of them, but then you're gonna work together. You're gonna work together with your higher self and your lower self to get rid of these things, because there are demonic parasites too. Once you get rid of the physical ones, you'll be able to fight demonic ones off, because your thoughts are going to begin to come back to you. The thoughts you really want, the thoughts to do better, thoughts to run your business, thoughts to quit your job, thoughts to leave your spouse. These thoughts are stopped. Do you realize that some people are with the spouse because there's a parasite inside the spouse that makes the spouse more attractive to you because of the parasite? And by you mating with the spouse, you guys are passing along children of the parasites. Did you know that? I'm divorced now.
I mean, I'm sitting here completely excited by the revelations that you have in your insight, because this is something that I always remind people of. It's like, all thoughts of your mind are not yours. And people are like, what are you talking about? And then I go a little step further and I go, did you realize there's no such thing as free will? And they're like, what are you talking? That's ridiculous. I have free will. Guess what? On the stroke of midnight into a new year, I am giving up cigarettes, drugs, alcohol, bad food, and I'm going to start my new page. And that's really a powerful incantation. There's no question about it. And it can be materialized. And I would always suggest that's a starting point, is to have a revelation, to speak it into the field, to connect with it. What happens is, though, until you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, right? Until you know what you know, and you know more than what you know. So, you know, on a face value, your perception of reality as a human being is still mitigated and controlled by that consciousness. So what is consciousness? Consciousness is derived by how much you can access the ether, the higher state of awareness, all things. That is limited until otherwise being given a notification. So Coach Reg spoke on it so well. It's like all of a sudden you're like, I just want one cookie. It's not one cookie, it's 20 cookies. That energy, that parasite that can be microscopic in its nature and be materialized, you can actually find it in your physical body and also in your energetic field, is something that is sort of like in the construct of understanding the conscious and unconscious process. So consciously, until otherwise notified, you work 95% unconsciously, 5% consciously. So if you just understand that foundation, stepping into your new reality, it makes a lot of sense for many things. And people are like, what? What does that even mean? Oh, so when I go and I proclaim to myself on the stroke of midnight into a new year that I'm going to give up cigarettes, drinking, alcohol, drugs, bad food, bad women, whatever it is, and a week later, I'm repeating the same behavior that I said I would never do again, you go, oh, this is what Coach Reg and San Qing is talking about. What is it? Oh, the measurement of conscious and unconscious process. What is that? If you're at 5% consciously and 95% of all the things you do is an unconscious process, try and arm wrestle the unconscious with 5% and see how far you get. Does that make sense? So you're like, consciously, I'm going to give this up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to, and then you really realize how much you're operating unconsciously, because you gravitate back to these behaviors and the food speaks to you, the cookies, the bad habits, the this, the that, there's something else. And you're like, I can't control it. I don't know what's going on. I get there and I'm like, I'm not going to do this. This is the last time I'm going to do it. And Groundhog Day returns. And Groundhog Day returns. And Groundhog Day returns. And see, what Coach Reg is bringing to our attention is these deeper understanding from a physiological. So we're just looking at different dimensions. As a Taoist, we look at matter, Qi, Shen, Wuji, and then Tao. These are dimensional shifts of consciousness. And so This is very much the same thing. When you shift the needle and take back and liberate yourself from the power of who you really are, is enveloping yourself as 100% consciousness through certain indicators that intuitively you realize. And as Coach Reg was talking about, oh, well, you know, I couldn't let my, I don't know where that came from. That's an interesting one.
I think when you said realize, the realize.
Yeah, maybe it's a trigger. Who knows? It's like, so.
Let me put my charger on, because let me get my charger real quick.
Yeah.
All right, we good.
All right, beautiful. So yeah, so that separation is where people are like, that makes complete sense why my willpower is crap. I'm like, yeah, because you, until otherwise given that realization and shifting that consciousness dial, it's like pushing shit uphill. It's not going to happen. So now when you ascend, you get back the true nature of who you are. The more you ascend, the wider your lens, the more you have access to all things, and the greater and greater your ability to shift and affect change, and it becomes instantaneous. So this conscious and unconscious process is nothing more than accessing the ether, either side of all things, whether it's something ascended beyond this dimension that we conceive as 3D, or we're staying here, which is making us very limited. Because even when you get someone who's sort of like, I'm disciplined, I eat well, I train hard, I do all these things, then you look at the deficiencies in their life. I'm a shit person, I treat people like garbage, I do all these other things. You start to realize the deficiency. Or you look at someone and go, they've got it down, they can manifest anything, they're billionaires, they're this, they're that. And then you look closer, and there are so many deficiencies in the nature of this person because they handled one aspect. We want all facets, right? And within Taoism, you develop everything so your senses are equalized. There's a balance. There's not an excess of deficiency. All your sensory perceptions are awakened. It's clear sense, clear audio, clear vision, clear smell, taste. And then you go beyond that to psychic, channel, mediumship. And you acquire, and you know what it is? It's sensory perception. It's just information. That's it. And you make it repeatable so you can refine yourself and use it at will. And then, you know, the power of all the things that Coach Reg talks about, which is that very catalyst, that parasite that he speaks of, that comes in the form of physical or energetic, which really consumes your emotions. So, you know, the sugar for these energetic parasites is your emotional state. They feed from it. They drop a straw into you and drink you like a little smoothie. And that's really that's the freaky part. And how do you know whether you're bearing witness to this? Go into a room or go to the local Starbucks, walk in and go to the counter and have one of the employees serve you. In most cases, they'll be very disgruntled, very disheartened, very depressed, very limited. And they'll be like, what do you want? And you'll be like, oh, good morning. How are you? Transmitting it. And they've already given you an 8, but you're like, I'm not listening to the 8. I'm giving you a 10. And then they're like, oh, I'd like to have a large venti coffee, blah, blah, blah. Milk and sugar? No, I'm good. Just black. And then you get the size. So then they're really hitting you with a 7, just with the dirty looks, the physical expression. And then you start to feed from that parasite, right? The parasite's now seeping into your aura because you're allowing it to, because now you're thinking, I gave them a 10, they gave me an 8, now they're giving me a 7. I think I really, to defend myself, I need to give them an 8 because I'm going to start to feel better, because that parasite is going, we need you to be satisfied. You're being deficient. Can't you see this person's attacking you? It's like, oh, you're 100% right. I need to give it to them. So they bring the coffee back and they kind of throw it in your face. And you're like, you're kind of rude, which is like a stern 5. And then they look at you like, this is what I'm thinking, and this is what you're going to feel. And you're, oh my goodness, now I'm getting a 3. And I'm going to pretty much give them a hand gesture that will let them know exactly how I really feel, which brings you down to a 2. You walk away, and now that frequency is now a transmission and what you replicate into your field. These parasites are feeding from your emotional state. The more you're heightened in any emotion, it's buffet time. It's a buffet of emotions. You're a tasty meal for them. And then all of a sudden you walk away, you have your coffee, you're like, I should be completely jacked and excited about my day. I'm doing all these things I want to do. I'm exhausted. I literally feel drained because you bought into what they were selling, and those energetic parasites fed from your very emotion. And now this is also parallel with other things that, people conceptually will talk about a much bigger frequency that is feeding from the earth plane, and emotions for human beings are the food for these entities to feed from. And so the more you express these emotions, the more they drain from your field. Now, that would be in the premise of fear, and realize that if you take on this perception and it resonates with you, your fear will be their dinner. So you have to realize that you can absolutely take on that perception. You can take on that understanding, but fear is not on the menu. Fear cannot exist for that to be realized. You can absolutely operate in that. So what happens is, normally the way I construct magic, and I'm around an entity like that in my profession, we call it a psychic vampire. The entity just gets really exhausted. And so the person that's projecting or siphoning, consciously or unconsciously, most of the case it's unconscious, becomes really exhausted. And you watch them physically, they almost start to fall asleep.
They do.
And for me, and all I say is, the framework of my magic is not limited to, hey, I want this person to really ill will and bad things. No, that's not how it works. How it works for me is I just frame it that these energies don't permeate my auric field or anything around me that is sacred in nature and everything, so that when the energy comes at me, it comes back to them tenfold. And so they're just feeding into themselves. And all of a sudden they're like, where is this going? Why am I exhausted? Why is it? What? It's just like, it's exhausting. And that's generally the dialogue of most people that have this victim mentality, right? You would understand this because you work with people on a one-on-one basis and you're doing healing and channeling. Excuse me. Have you noticed this very phenomena?
Oh yes, I've used this. I've tested this phenomenon quite a bit, and I've tried it out on people that were vibing low, and I would transmute their energy every time I encounter someone who is like this. I focus on, it's a test. I look at it as a test in a form of initiation for the next level of my ascension, which I also tell people it is as well, because once you start to come on this path of enlightenment, or whatever people want to call it, you're tested by those closest to you first, normally friends, family, spouse, children. They'll use anybody they can with low consciousness to be able to test you. So it's your job as a light worker to be able to transmute the energy and use it to assist you in your ascension. I have seen these effects take place to the point where some people is even being deteriorated right in front of my face because they cannot change mine. So I'm changing theirs, but they still have entities on them, which and they're fighting. So the entities just eating them alive. It eat them alive because it can't get to me. So everything I look at like that is a test, and I advise people to handle people in that way. Look at it as a test. Don't look at it as an attack. Change that right there. Look at it as a test to get better, to get stronger, which is why I'll blatantly go to certain places which I know are crowded to see who's going to attack me and how I'm going to handle it. And every time I get better. And if I lose, I'm like, oh, okay, I have to get better next time. So I look at it as a little fun fight too.
Right. And that's real world battle tested type of stuff. And that's interesting that Coach Reg talks about that, because I have an actual app that does exactly that. And it says it. Did we talk about that before? I don't know whether we
Yeah,
did.
and
But
the
like
last one. Mm-hmm.
the app will give you an awakening and awareness, a dialing and synchronization of your energy centers. And most people go, that's impossible. Well, when you hit play and you've had 5 pina coladas, a full body massage, and a week in the Bahamas, and that's your simulation from the exposure to that energy, frequency, or vibration, that kind of like validates and closes the deal, because you have to realize it's your experience, your truth. And that's the most important thing. Your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. And you need to level up. You must be able to validate it, as Coach Reg says. You need to be able to validate your experience is real, and using techniques and methods to do so is the way you acquire that consciousness. And you develop these and cultivate these skills, and they become very apparent when you are able to repeat them. And so that's a really powerful insight, my friend, when you tell someone they need to apply it. It's part of their own test of training in their experience, is to be able to apply these techniques and have them realized in their reality.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so now that you've been on this conscious journey for, how many years in social media, you have a reputation of Mr. Intensity, bringing people's awareness to alternative healing and the true nature of themselves by tapping into true source, real food, real healing techniques that are founded in nutrition and lifestyle changes. And now you're really immersing yourself in higher consciousness that's expressed through the frequency, energy, vibration. How is that transmuted? Like, what are you doing with that? Is that taking more of your focus away from the original messaging?
It's becoming very difficult to talk about the things that everybody likes to talk about. When you have a following like mine, you find people that have found you for a particular reason, just talking about health. But when you become the example, you must realize that health has changed me in a major way, in a way where it can change anybody who wants to really tap into it seriously. So it's very difficult to talk about the same things as far as what to eat and those types of things, when there's so much more than just what you eat. Is way more that's making you sick. You could be a vegan, raw vegan, and if your thoughts are not good, if you're stressed out, if you're in fight or flight, you're still going to get sick. You're still going to get sick if you have an entity on you, or your auras, got spots and holes in it, and you haven't taken no spirit bath. You're cleansing your body, but you're not cleansing your auric field. It's more than just physical. So on this journey, it's been a challenge to stay on the same type of conversation when there's so much more. I know a lot of individuals are doing it because they don't want to lose their following, but that's not righteous. And there are other beings that you have made an agreement with that are watching your character and who you really are. And I know this. So I introduce things to my health following that are like this, because I believe that everything is about health. Energy is health. Spirit is health. Food is health. Herbs are health. Light language and sound frequencies are health. It's all health. And if you don't tap into all elements of health, then you're missing a big part of what you really are. So yeah, that's how it's been for me.
Yeah, I would have to concur and realize, I always tell people, it's like, you can hit the treadmill, you can eat a bag of kale, you can take all the vitamins in the world, but if the seed and core of your destruction is still the eminent, very infantile depth of your emotions, that's going to succeed. That will succeed every time. Your emotions are the catalyst to your realization. Your emotions will determine your outcome. You can go, oh, I want to live to 120. But if you spend most of your time burning your fuse, and within Taoism, we call this Qing, your constitution, and it comes from your connection with the kidneys. The kidneys are the source of all things when it comes to longevity within Taoism. So if that is compromised, i.e. on a physical level, and then you add to the catalyst, which is the very fundamental emotion that's derived from the kidneys, which is fear, all bets are off. I mean, you will go down very quickly. And, this is part of the problem. People don't consider that. So they eat well. I'm drinking the perfect water. I'm not calcifying my pineal gland. And I don't want to sound dismissive, but bloody blah, blah, blah. I mean, it really is that level, because everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. That's it. And all the things that we're attaching ourselves to in this human experience is energy, frequency, vibration. And it's just a different state. It's slowed down so that we can touch it, but it's still light, wave, particle matter. That's it. And so now we're like, okay, so if you really want to crack, because to be honest with you, this is the phenomena that most people come across once in a blue moon. They come across, Uncle Jared was drinking a bottle of whiskey and smoking 2 cigars, and he lived to 120. They're like, yeah, that's true. And then you realize this guy just embraced every day as it should be, as the present moment. Yes. And his perception of reality was, I enjoy everything. I embrace everything. Everything is completely satisfying and fulfilling. And you understand now exactly how he drank a bottle of whiskey and smoked 3 cigars or 2 cigars every day till his last breath. And he was fully operational and had complete control and function of his physical body. People are like, but that's just a rare oddity, like some DNA like freak. No, actually, this is where you become the master keeper creator of your reality. And so, some of the things that we do within Taoism, like for training wise, a part of the being ordained is you take I think we've talked about this, get a glass of water and you get a glass of alcohol. Have I talked to you about this? I talked about that.
Yeah.
So the whole purpose of it is to be able to transmute the alcohol, move it from one glass, put it into another, and you test it. And that's really this. That's it. That's all. So you do it in the physical body. The easiest, lowest level of transmutation or transformation is physical healing. Because if you've got there, you've sat on the emotions and the mental state for many years in your natural born life to transmute it into a physical ailment. That has been one of those things. You've chased that emotion and you've come to this conclusion. I always ask people, do you love yourself more than your emotions? Like, what are you talking about? You engage in anger, and I'm just using this hypothetically, the emotion anger, most people love it because it's a sense of clarity. That's the lure and the deception of it, just like we talk about the parasites. Anger gives you clarity. I know I don't like you. I know I hate this place, person, or thing. I'm sharp and concise with my intention. And that's the delusion. And people don't realize, but it burns so much juice. That juice is so strong, and people love it. They get to it, and they're like, the best work I ever did was when I was in fear and angry. And then they talk about this, and they go, yeah, I had to chase that, and I had to get that. I had to work my 27 hours a day, and I had discipline, all these things, right? And they roll it out, and then they die when they're 45. And you're like, what's going on? What? Because this mentality, this psyop, the way that you process reality is the misconception that the emotions are the gateway to consciousness. And the second you put them on the side and you realize they don't control the show, now you get a level up. But most people will be like, oh, no, I'm just, you get some of the biggest influences out here in social media land. Someone like Hormozy, right? Have you heard of this guy, Hormozy? So, Alex Hormozy, some sort of like big mover and shaker. Yeah. He's got $100 million a month company, and he builds businesses from zero to $100 million in 5 seconds. And he's maybe might be 35 if you're lucky, maybe 35, 36. Yet he uses the catalyst, and he's convinced that his no bullshit, no time, but like, 27-hour days, focusing on the grind. He calls it the grind, putting it in, doing this, it will be realized. The prophecy that I'm speaking of right now, and people can record this in history and timestamp it, is this guy's at 35, 36. He's not going to make 45 because he's burnt his true essence out. He doesn't know how to replace it. That's part of like why Taoism is so powerful. Our internal alchemy practices level up your constitution. So that means that whatever you're at, you can re-up to 100% and multiply it by 10 and live there all day long, and then transmute the universe as opposed to your own life force to be realized. That's why, body workers always are exhausted. Or even an example, when you mention light workers, normally they're exhausted because practices are protect myself. I'm afraid of this person. This is not going to happen. So they take on the protection aspect, but in their mind, they don't really believe it because they're in duality. So I'm protected. I did this incantation. I put all this thing. And then they go and do some work with someone. And the preface is the word work. Listen very carefully to that, because it creates an absolute obstacle and roadblock for anybody when they have to associate an expansive anything with this contractive word. Work in of itself, breath work, light work, healing work. And so there are certain people in this field, i.e. Joe Dispenza, who creates limitations with the own people that he works with, because he always talks about it. You got to do the work. I don't know whether you ever heard of Joe Dispenza, but
I have his book.
Right. So you got to do the work. And his one liner, which is so funny, is no one likes striking a match in a dark place. And so these are the things that replicate. The reason I bring him up is because I come across his rhetoric very often, because I'll teach people how to synchronize, and they'll be like, is that coherence? And then my personality is like, oh, you did. Oh, you didn't. No, you didn't. I was like, whoa, hang on. Okay, well, sure. Now I'm not going to let the anger control my behavior. And so I bring that back down, but they go there and they associate, because he's very good at marketing. And so all these ascended ancient indigenous practices start with something that a lot of these guys that are in the consciousness community have ripped off. Someone like myself, an ancient teacher, but they've gone to Tibet and they've taken some poor guy that just wants some yak butter and a pack of cigarettes, and they've put him under extensive training and experiences through using EEGs and whatnot. And they've got this information and they're like, this is how you do it. And and this is a world first here, is what people don't realize is these guys are setting up their groups as a succubus of a higher nature. So when they get thousands of people into these healing workshops, they're feeding from their very essence and energy that makes them whole. And so they don't realize that. So they're like lambs to the slaughter. And it's like, I'm learning this healing technique. I'm sinking in, doing all this stuff. And it's like, whoa, wow, did San Qing just say that? Oh yeah, I have no filter. I'm going to let it be known, because there is an absolute contractive moment there, because there's an expansive moment. But then when people walk away from that kumbaya moment, everything regresses back to a default of their humanness, the simplicity of their mind. They haven't debusted, debunked, or demystified the very essence of why they were there. They got the healing from a group environment. It was then taken from them, and then they start to they digress, they retreat, they contract, and this is all part of the nature of some of these things. When you understand the deeper cultivating practices that go way beyond someone butchering a little bit here and a little bit there, and they put it together and go, sync the brain and the heart, and all things will be realized. That is very much conceptual. And when you go to these large group environments, there's a lot more going on there that people can't see with their physical eye that they should really be aware of, because that's the misconception. So where we got to from where we were is me going on a complete rant, and I'm completely okay with that. But we're talking about these parasites. People need to understand this. Coach Reg and I are coming from a place of love and healing, and people need to realize that that is the baseline, and you're susceptible to it only with the nature of your perception. What does that all mean? Sifu, tell me. Okay, I'll tell you. If you believe in fear, fear will find you. If you are contracted, and see, that's where you can transmute these emotions. And it's another level of perception. And that's why when we talk about eating right, if you don't eat right, you need to be exercising, eating right, doing all these things. Conceptual. If you can't handle that, if you can't handle your emotions and put them in the corner and tell them to sit, then you are going to be devoured by these lower frequencies. If you are conceptual with your going, I believe in it, we're all one, I'm the universe, yet deep in the inner workings in the corners of your unconscious, the true understanding is, I'm scared, and I'm scared to shit. I'm afraid of things. I'm really afraid. But I'm going to tell myself that the old expression, fake it till you make it, it will materialize in your reality. So all this stuff is sort of conceptual and talking head business, but the fastest way to validate it is to see what's going on around you, to realize what is truly happening in your day-to-day reality. Are you a byproduct of this? Do you truly believe it? You can validate it instantaneously. Watch the manifestation, magic, healing transmute into your reality on a daily basis. And so, you know, simple things like the biggest one to remove emotions, and I like to get everyone to start with this, is called the parking fairy. Have you ever heard of this?
No. But before we get into it, I only got 10 minutes left before I got to go on.
All right, so I'm going to finish this and then we'll spend some off time.
Okay.
So the parking fairy is this. You start with, you know, I want a parking space. Okay. It's very benign. So people can play with this and they get instant results because they're not invested with it. It's something between them and the parking space, and no one needs to know they're practicing magic and I'm attempting to acquire this consciousness. I want to shift something. I want to manifest something. And it happens the first time, right? You go, I want a parking space. You drive up to where you are, you're like, poof, it's right there. Oh, that's a coincidence. Oh, look, it's at the front door of the business. People are coming and going all the time. It's just a coincidence. And then they do it again. Oh, okay. And then they do it again. And then they do it again. And they do it about 47 times and they go, oops, okay. What is the commonality? Why? How come this can be manifested instantaneously? And it defies all this other nonsense that people get into. You've got to get into this state. If you manifest it, you need 72 hours. You need to keep repeating an incantation, use these sort of robotic behaviors. If you tell yourself over and over and over and over again, eventually it'll be realized the reason that something as simplistic as that takes place instantaneously is the emotional content is removed. You're not concerned about the outcome. You're like, it's a throwaway. I'm not being judged by anyone. It's not like I'm telling everyone I'm going to do this and everyone's watching me to see whether there's an outcome. It's your ability to put your attention, intention in a fleeting second to that realization, and it is recognized. That's how manifestation works. That's how healing works. That's how magic works. And so if you're able to tune into that frequency, which takes a second, and the more you do it, the more it's refined and ingrained into your very simulation, then it becomes realized. And it's because there's no emotional content, because you've got nothing to lose. What do I care? No one cares. And so that is a foundational starting point. And people don't realize how that is confirmed. I just confirmed it 47 times this week. And you as a human being has to stop and go, well, what's the commonality here? It's my emotional content. I have nothing invested in it. When I do a healing, when I do a channeling, when I do anything, all I'm doing is observing. It's coming in. And so people get information, they get healings, all this stuff. So how is that possible? Because It's not my healing. It's not my information. I honestly, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't care less. I'm just receiving. I'm receiving this stuff, and I'm able to acquire that state of consciousness. And with that, I don't have an outcome. I'm not going, well, people need to give me recognition. I'm a healer. And this is where healers get caught up. Massage therapists, light workers, alternative Chinese medicine healers, chiropractors, functional medicine, all the same category. They get caught up because they want the accolades, the confirmation, the validation that what they just witnessed was a healing that they were the ones that are catalysts for. And that's where you get defeated. So you get people that have these moments, or, so how was it? Are you feeling better? And people are like, I didn't feel anything. And then your ego gets deflated. And then all of a sudden you can't validate what is going on. But I'm having this experience. All these things are taking place. Yet this person, I know this person felt this energy. And they're like, no, sorry, I didn't even notice anything. And so people are not registering as a catalyst and conduit. You're not registering what are the contending issues that the individual that you are emerging with is not realizing. So you need to identify all their channels and what is excess and deficient so that they can be realized instantaneously. Because I promise you, if you're operating in a duality, it will transmute into something else. So if someone goes, I can't feel the energy, which is a direct deficiency of the lung channel, it will come in the form of an emotion, or it will come in the form of a thought. And that will be validated no matter who you are. And so people are like, oh, but you can't touch me because I'm protected. That's in your mind. You have got so much fear. I could like sell it all day, every day at, record amounts. And this is the problem that people get into. I'm protected. You're protected because you believe in that, yet fear is such a major catalyst to your very everyday simulation. And so these are the things that people contend with. I'm going to thank the audience for sharing time with Coach Reg and myself today. We might have to do a part 3. I don't know. I think so, because it's either you're talking or I'm talking, and the audience absolutely loves everything that's coming out of your very vessel. And this is resonating on a much deeper level. So I want to thank you, Coach Reg, for sharing your time with us today, and your insight and the power of your dragon language. I'm digging it. I want to crash course. When I finish up my Mandarin, I need to get deep into the dragon language. And it really is a feeling. It's really powerful stuff. And we'll do a group channel at some point. I think that'd be awesome. And I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. I am your humble servant and Sifu Taoist Master, San Qing, and I will see you guys on the next one.